Oh, look at this. Right there. We've got some folks on the other side of the river. And I don't think that the Americans know anything about it yet. Crossing the Eagle Pass Bridge. So we can see down here we've got Texas National Guard, the container barriers, and then we're about to come up on the Rio Grande. A little bit easier to see over here. Container barriers, Rio Grande. And then getting over here to the Mexican side, so I'll shut this off. Hello everybody. We are here in Piedras Negras, across the river from Eagle Pass, Texas. So there's a big waterfront park that runs along the front of the river on both sides. Well, actually, looking straight through here, this is a golf course, but there's a big park on the left that is blocked off by what you can see straight ahead are all of these containers with lots of spools of concertina wire, razor wire up on them. As you can see, there's two main entrances between Piedras Negras and Eagle Pass. So there's the one bridge and the other bridge. I believe this is bridge number 1. This is the western bridge, and bridge number 2 is the eastern one. And you can see the eastern one has all of the truck traffic as well as cars. So we're gonna get down, do some walking around. The locals here like to hang out in the park. It's quite pretty and well kept up. There is quite a bit of water in the Rio Grande down here. I was here a couple of months ago, and I would say the water levels were half or less of what we're seeing here. So this is going to be a more difficult spot to be able to get across as opposed to some of the other places we've seen. But let's see what we can find. We might even find some migrants just hanging out down here, but it's kind of doubtful. It sounds like, from the folks I'm talking to, Piedras Negras is pretty chill at the moment, not too many migrants, but that also makes sense because we know there's a concerted effort by the Mexican government to stop people from getting up to the Texas border, and has been for several months. So most of the folks who had kind of landed here are through town at this point and either back south or crossing the U.S. Just chatting with a guy who was talking about how last year about 50,000 people came in a big rush, and he said, man, there's no way that you can steer 50,000 migrants into a town like Piedras Negras without some kind of outside force with a lot of money. And he suspected that it was cartel driven, at least in part, to try and overwhelm the border in certain spots and make it easier to get people across because of that. So when I was here before, you could see the Texas National Guard, which I see a couple of vehicles that looks like they would be military oriented, so that would indicate Texas National Guard. But they also patrol the river in little flat bottom boats with outboard motors. And while they won't stop people from crossing directly, they tell them, don't cross. You're not going to be able to get over the wall here where they've got all of these shipping containers, because the Texas National Guard soldiers, when migrants will cross over, will get up on top of the containers there, and if people try to get up and over the containers, they push them back down. They stand in their way. They make sure that they can't get up and over. And the folks in the boats will tell the migrants, hey, you know, it's better on the other side. We can take you back across. You don't have to wade through again. In part because it's dangerous. I mean, if you see this level of water, it would not be that difficult to get swept away, and a lot of people have. There have been quite a few people who have died crossing. Now, this is one of the primary crossing spots that we're coming up to. You can kind of see past this little island in the middle of the river. There's pretty calm waters on the other side, so it's really just this one spot of rapids that is the major barrier to get through. And I don't see anybody down here right now. Obviously trying to figure out how to get across, but that was in contrast to the last time I was here. There were quite a few people, and in fact there were probably 30 or 40 migrants who were over on the other side and working their way along the riverbank here, trying to figure out where they're going to have the easiest time penetrating through to get over the barriers to get into the golf course on the other side. They were kind of working their way all the way down from one side through to the other. There's a little stream that comes into the Rio Grande right up here, and they had crossed that and were working their way up underneath the International Bridge number 1. But as you can see, water levels are high, so this is going to be a more dangerous crossing than at other points in the year, and it's just not this much water. So I guess it's a good thing nobody's trying to cross. Yeah, it was interesting because it was right along this section of wall that, and you can even see a ladder poking up right there under the tree, where the National Guard's folks will get up on top of the containers to be able to defend them. But it was right along this section that everybody was walking, and then, you know, making periodic forays up to the containers to see if there were any kind of soft spots in the defense where they could jump up and grab hold and pull themselves up. So we'll explore along the river here a little bit and see if we can find anything interesting going on or folks to talk to. So we're just past the second bridge in between it and the railroad bridge, and this is right about where you can see the container barrier stops. There's still a long stretch of razor wire, and we've got a military personnel, assuming Texas National Guard, stationed up underneath the railroad bridge in the shade, keeping an eye on things. There's no big rapids spot right here, so hypothetically a little bit easier to be able to get across. Look at that mess of wire. Looks like a World War I battlefield. And a well-worn path here along the riverbank. Spots where people can get down to the water. Okay, working my way further downriver. Got some horses picketed down here. Oh! All right. So, looking there at the railroad bridge, Bridge 1 and then Bridge 2. Or 2 and then 1 in the distance. And you can see chain link fence, spools of wire, patrol vehicles right up and over there. I could see it just before I came down to the riverbank, but we've got a CBP pickup. So lots of defensive works, and then back up behind that, maybe 400 or 500 yards, you've got, I don't know how visible that is, but you've got the bollard wall. So I'm going to get the drone in the air and see what we can see. Okay, got the drone in the air. Let's take it up. I might be limited here to 100 feet. But let's see what we can see at 100 feet. Oh no, I can go higher. Sweet. Okay. So, here we're looking out over the embankment. And let's kind of turn. So this is looking downriver here. Let's actually get some elevation. Going up, there's about 300 feet right there. You can see the course of the river. Things look like stretch of the wall down there on the other side. So this is looking out over the US side. See the patrol roads. And now this is looking upriver towards the bridges and the golf course on the US side, and then the park beyond that. And then on the left hand side you can see the park and the kind of historic downtown of Piedras Negras. I'll do a quick pan the rest of the way. Oh, I see a helicopter coming, so I'm going to get out of his airspace. Do a quick view over across Piedras Negras. There's about 300 feet. Piedras Negras has maybe 150,000 people or so. Good sized little town. Enough to do that the kids don't get bored. Back to the river. Okay. Well, I'm going to not hike down any further this direction, and we'll go back up the park the other direction. and see what we can find. Not too many people down there today. Kind of early in the day too, so that makes sense. And also, if people aren't allowed to swim, that also makes sense. Unlike what we were seeing in Del Rio. Well, lots of people on the water. It's like we got a friend. Oh, he's so friendly. Hey, buddy. Hey. Hey, how are you? Oh, he's got a collar, so I guess he's not a stray, but looks like he was down keeping cool in the love bug. Looks like he was keeping cool down in the river. Get down, get wet, get back up. Okay, we are down here on the other side. This is the upriver side, northern side of the International Bridge number 1. And you can see this is the boat launch where, now I see a jet boat there that says State Trooper on it. So interestingly, looks like we got state troopers in the mix, but I see someone in a military uniform across the way here. So guessing that's probably National Guard. And this is part of the park. And you can see also the start of the container wall. And then as it transitions over into just the concertina wire and Eagle Pass behind that. So we're not down here in the park anymore, and so there's no prohibition against swimming. And so as we kind of go further up the bank there of the river, there's some folks who are in the water enjoying it because it is over 100 degrees. I think the technical term for that is hot as balls. Got some folks just enjoying the shade. So I'm walking back up towards now the start of the waterfront park. And we'll take a real quick glance at what's happening there. Okay. We are right at the start, or the north end of the waterfront park. And what we've got here behind me is the boats that the National Guard are using to patrol the river. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot going on right now, so they're just hanging out, chatting. But we've got, looks like 4 National Guard members there in their outboards, just chilling, talking, trying to beat the heat. Poor guys are in full uniform. Oh no, there's 5 of them there. 3 in one boat, 2 in the other. And so they'll patrol this stretch of the Rio Grande, just looking for folks who are trying to get across so they can not try and stop them in the middle of the river, but let folks on the US side of the shore get over and intercept and apprehend. So working my way along the Piedras Negras walkway here, and we've got the spot where the network news loves to sit, especially when there's migrants who have crossed and they can get them in the background. They're kind of on the shore, but this area where there's a bit of a gap between the end of this container wall and then it kind of cuts down back along this creek, and then container wall doesn't start until over here again. But this area right here is where the news vans will pull up, and then they set up their cameras and they stick their beautiful anchors out with the backing shot of you know, all the concertina wire, and ideally you get some migrants lined up there, and then this is where it's all happening, folks. Welcome to Piedras Negras and Eagle Pass. You can see over here is the Piedras Negras sign and the central square area with their really big pole that usually has a Mexican flag flying. Right now it doesn't. This is their Customs and Border Patrol area here, where folks who walk across and drive across go through their inspections. But there is also this big waterfront park here on the Piedras Negras side. All of these cool viewpoints, and this goes down for maybe a mile, maybe a mile and a half. There's another bridge down back that direction. Oh, look at this. Right there, we've got some folks on the other side of the river, and I don't think that the Americans know anything about it yet. So you can see them, right down here. So there's the container barrier wall with all the concertina wire on top, and then there's a roll or two usually further down with these kind of areas along where the concertina wire works its way down closer to the water. So these folks have made their way across, and this is Shelby Park, big park on the US side. Okay, it looks like this is Texas National Guard in the boats, and it looks like they just got tipped off that there's some migrants. I'm guessing, because they're both taken off, that there's some migrants over on the side of the road. And yep, sure enough, they're pointing at them. Okay, in they go. Looks like the migrants might be cutting the concertina wire. Okay, when I've been here in the past, the folks in the boats have not tried to do any apprehensions, especially while people are in the water, just for fear of causing somebody to drown, because that has happened often enough in this river. So they're probably telling them, I can't hear what they're saying. Probably telling them, don't cut the wire. Stop that. Telling them, look, you're not going to make it through. We will man the defensive barriers if necessary. Get people up on top of the containers to push you down. We may have a couple of their friends right below me. They're using some colorful language. I'm not sure how these guys got across. The main crossing point is downriver a little ways. So potentially, no, I'll bet they didn't cross there. I think they probably just swam. Maybe further upriver, got into the water, and then kind of drifted down with the current while swimming across. So when I've seen this in the past, the security guards, the Texas National Guard, will try and convince them to go back across rather than making further attempts to try and get over, especially up and over. They seem to be negotiating. Lots of arms waving and gesticulating. But what they're not doing is continuing to cut the wire. So when I've been here in the past, I actually walked upriver, probably a few miles up along the river, and there's a bunch of spots that I had seen in previous news photography spots where people cross. And talking to the Guardia Nacional that I ran into up there, he was telling me that the foreigners pretty much always try and cross. Pretty much always try and cross here at Shelby Park, and people further upriver where there's fewer defenses and less wall and no wire are typically Mexicans. Okay, so apparently the negotiations have ended and they're working their way through the concertina wire and seem to be intent on trying to try the wall. Alright, I got a little distracted. The guys are working their way back under the tree. Got two groups of youths over here having a fight throwing rocks at each other. No one has hit anyone yet. Oh, the last holdout went running. Alright, our guys are back sheltering under the tree. Looks like they decided not to go further up the coast beyond that string of wire. Well, this is slow going enough that I'm not going to wait anymore. This will end in a couple of ways. Eventually, the migrants will try and force their way up and over the wall, and they'll eventually get apprehended, or they cross back over, swim across, and get back to the Piedras Negras side to apparently rest, recuperate, and potentially try again at a different time. I had a friend that I made when I was down here last time who was from Honduras and had made his way north here to the border and was waiting for the right opportunity to cross. He spoke pretty good English and he wanted to get into the US, but he was pushing one of these ice cream carts and selling ice cream as a way of funding his lifestyle here in town. I didn't know when he was going to try and cross, but was going to wait for the right opportunity. So I don't know if he's still around here. I'm kind of scanning all the different little ice cream carts for him, but I'm not seeing him in it working. So maybe he was able to find his way across.